So I'm happy to introduce you to Dr. Geneviève Lefort, all on your right. She is Vice-Rectrice for Quality and Social Responsibility at the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Western Switzerland. You are also on the steering committee of today's conference, and we will welcome you again at the end of this conference. Thank you for being here. Second, I come to the middle, to Mrs. Professor Dr. Judith Walls. She is a professor of sustainability management at the University of St. Gallen. You are also the delegate of your university for responsibility and sustainability. And in this function as a delegate, together with a team of 7, you are responsible for setting the overarching sustainability strategy of the University of St. Gallen and coordinating the different sustainability measures. Welcome to you. Then I go back, second on the right. Welcome, Mr. Dr. Christian Zeyer. You are the co-director of swisscleantech. swisscleantech is an industrial federation with more than 600 members from all different industry and economic branches and sectors. Heute die Wirtschaft von morgen gestalten, klimatauglich. That's his slogan in German.
So his slogan in German is then to today make
and last but
Switzerland and cleaner.
And he only learned today at lunch about this special panel and his role, so that's really amazing. You are Benjamin Pierroz. You will soon enter your 3rd year as a bachelor student in law at University of Fribourg. You are also a member of the executive committee at the National Students Union, and as well as Geneviève, you are also on the steering committee of this conference. Last but not least, our moderator, Tatjana von Steiger. You're head of the global policy outreach at Wyss Academy, and you are foundation president of WWF Schweiz. If I'm correctly informed, this new function, or this function as foundation president, you actually took it today a year ago on September, so congratulations, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lawrence. And thanks to the panelists to be here on the stage. We have an interesting discussion before us. We have a huge challenge, time, as always. So I'm just diving straight into the first question. Geneviève,
yes.
We heard you are the vice director of the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Western Switzerland. Your university's goal is to teach students skills that are directly applicable to the real world. Now, the real world today, we know, is subject to a massive transformation. The question I would like to ask you to start with is, how do you, also as responsible for quality in your university, ensure that the skills that are taught are skills that our students that lead tomorrow will actually be able to do this, to assume the responsibility that will be given to them tomorrow?
Well, what a question. Thank you for this question. I would say there are different ways to answer. The first dimension, I would say, if I want to know that the students have the skills, I first have to make sure that they get those skills, that they're taught, that those teachers that are active in our institution actually have the tools that they need to actually teach those skills to the students. We also need, of course, to know that those skills are written on the framework of competences of the study programs at the university. We, of course, need, and that's my job, to do the highest thing, the management, the help of the management and the resource to do all that. But to do all that, of course, we're doing our best, and we're doing what we're all trying to do by coming here today is actually to to introduce more sustainability in those study programs, and we do have our own program to do that, which we are developing, and we can of course develop on it if you want to. And since you said that I'm also the Vice Rector for Quality and not just social responsibility, then there is also, if you want to look at the quality assurance side of it, we have, of course, some instruments, quality assurance instruments for the study programs themselves. So regularly, every 7 years, we look at what the study programs is, how it is designed. I mean, there are many questions that we kind of defined internally. What is the quality of a study program? And we have instruments to check that. Does that answer the question?
Thank you very much so. And I'm jumping to Judith. When I hear that we have to introduce more sustainability in curricula, when I was going to the website of the University of St. Gallen, I was digging a bit. And of course, I knew you. I've heard a lot about you and your role, given that you're very vocal in terms of promoting sustainability in higher education. However, I dare to say that, at least me personally, if I think of the University of St. Gallen, I don't think immediately of sustainable education. I think more of business, traditional, conventional business, and the business leaders. And I also dare to say that probably many students are motivated mainly because they want to become business leaders in the big corporations. So how do you take them by their hand and make them embrace what your university also says and states, that they want to promote sustainability and responsibility?
Yeah, that's right. I think certainly that's our reputation and our history as a very traditional business school where many of our students go into banking, finance, and consulting. And so the question is, how do you shift from that traditional mindset to something around sustainability? And I won't claim that every business student at the moment leaves our university with sustainability in hand, but I can simply share what I do personally and what I know of others who are leading this effort at our university. And I think it's three parts. One is a very personal one. The second is around pedagogical approaches. And the last one is around, shall I say, storytelling or narrative. And so the very personal part of this is up to me or the lecturer right in the room. I think most people, luckily, who care about sustainability are also very passionate about it. And it's a way of sharing that passion with the students and getting them really excited about the topic. I think in many ways, even though we have traditional business students, most of them are very well aware that climate change and other sustainability problems exist. They simply kind of separate it from business, or they don't see necessarily the role of business. So for me, having many years of work in that area, trying to connect the two things, being very passionate about it, being open and vulnerable with them, and also as an individual showing I'm not perfect. I'm not a fully sustainable person. I do things in my life that are not sustainable, and that we have these trade-offs to consider. And listening to them, so engaging them in a sort of dialogue, because they have questions, fears, concerns, pushback, and just engaging with them on that. So that's that part. I think pedagogically, I mean, we had many talks this morning about the different types of competencies that can be built and the ways of teaching. Personally, I like to use a more experiential type of learning process. So I have a flipped classroom. That means I'm not the only one that creates the content and the experience in the classroom. The students do part of that. There are other examples of that at our university with the Be to Change courses and so on. We also are very lucky with our university to have lots of ties to business. So I bring businesses in and I make it real for the students. This is a real life challenge that businesses are struggling with, also in finance and investing. And then to think about getting them out of their comfort zone a little bit, or taking them out of the classic classroom structures, so field trips or going outside. One of my courses we teach in the Wildpark, so the wildlife park. And people are sort of wondering, what are we doing amongst the nice animals that are here, you know? And they have to walk 20 minutes to get there. There's no bus, right? So even just kind of shifting their mindset and sort of bringing them into a different state. So there are many ways to do that. And I think the final part of that, you go from the cognitive, teaching them awareness, to emotional, and then this behavioral impact and change. We have examples like our Managing Climate Solutions Certificate program, where the students have projects that take place in the local community or on campus. So an example is solar panels on the gym of our roof were just approved after 3 years of different student teams working on that. Or we have these climate stairs, so the famous stairs that go up to St. Gallen have the climate stripes now attached to them, working with the local government, so it's very visible. And the last part is the narrative or the story. I think sometimes when we teach about topics like climate change, we fall into the trap of sort of a doomsday and fear scenario. We do need to create literacy around climate change, so I also do that at the beginning of my courses, but I quickly shift to hope, because I think hope is really important. And hope can be established through solutions, showing what the solutions are, creatively working on it with students, encouraging to think differently, breaking out of the traditional models that you just mentioned, and then thinking about focus, what is really most important, because it can easily become overwhelming, these huge, wicked problems. So let's try to sort of really focus on the 2 or 3 things that are the most important. I'll stop there because I know we're short on time.
Thank you so much, Judith. Benjamin, when listening to Judith, what I heard is not just that there is agency needed on the side of those that lecture and teach, but also on the side, there's actually agency on the side of the students themselves. You are a member of the Union of Students. Where do you take agency in terms of ensuring that actually and demanding that these skills you need to be an agent also in the future are being taught to you?
So that's a very interesting question. Thank you very much. I believe that the first need that we have as a human being is to have an education that allows for a certain sensibilization or sense rendering awareness. There are too many, let's say, institutions that don't give any training in durability. And for example, when I was studying jurisprudence, I never heard anything about sustainability, whether in the outside world nor at school. And that is something that was very disturbing. And then there's also the hope then at the universities. And I think it is something that I'm going to retain. And you have to come back on that. If things are presented to the students in a negative manner, it could perhaps even morally become difficult and destroy the person. But if we show that there are possibilities, thanks to everyone's getting together and working together as a group, that's where you see a potential or the possibility to work together and to make society progress in terms of sustainability.
On one side, you have never heard in a field which is taught widely and to many about sustainable development, which is quite worrisome. You also mentioned the practicability of what is being taught. So Christian, as a practitioner, the practitioner in this round, also hearing what Judith says, saying she wants to bring businesses in. So how can we bring businesses in? What language needs to be spoken to businesses that they actually see that it is also of their benefit to cooperate, and then also say which are the skills we need to then be able to also assume our responsibility as businesses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a very difficult question. I think we need to go one step back and talk about the fact that when I talk to business leaders, it is, and I talk to business leaders that are interested in sustainability in the end. But still, when I talk to them, in the end, the question is, or the notion is, we need to make profit. It is not possible to have an economy without profit. So, in the end, this produces the general problem, and it produces also quite a bit of a stretch towards this person, because they would like to do sustainability, yet it is difficult for them to do. And myself, when I was in the role of a process developer in the industry, I had that same notion that I wanted to make the products better, yet I couldn't do it for quite some reason. And one of the reasons in many cases was profitability. So the thing is that in the end, we are running on a system, on an operations system in the economy that in the end is not going to lead to a good end. And we know, but we don't know how to get out of it. And that's the place where politics come into. Because we have this interdependency between the macroeconomic scale and the microeconomic scale. And as long as companies are in a situation that their profitability is better when they're not ecological, we are in a situation that we are moving into a wrong direction. So back to this question that you asked me, we need to talk to business leaders to make them understand, and I think that many of them understand this already, that it is important to change the framework boundaries in a way that in the end, being ecological or being sustainable is profitable and not against the profit. And we have to be clear about that. In many cases, today, this is the case, and that makes the stretch. So if you ask me what you need to talk or to teach to the students, I think the most important thing is to teach them an attitude. To teach them the attitude to know that the operation system is wrong, the operation systems they will be working in is wrong, and that we need to change it, but still they need to stick to their convictions and they need to find out what they can do today. This is a stretch for them to do, but you have to prepare them to be able to do that. And with that, I think in the long run, we will be able to achieve a change.
Thank you so much, Christian. You mentioned the framework boundaries. What I think, and I heard also the word of hope. So how much, and there I'm looking again at our two representatives that are representing universities and higher education institutions. Where do you see can they play a role in moving away from a problem focus to more a solution focus? Because if this is also linked to the question of hope, in view of then working together with other actors outside or in society on those solutions. Yes, Geneviève.
I think each discipline really needs to have a big reflection on what is the role of the discipline in the problem today, and how could be the role of that same discipline in the solution today and for tomorrow. And I was wondering, how close do you work with the universities, yourself in your position?
Well, it depends. We don't really work with students in the end. We work with researchers to get the basics, the science. We try to develop on top of that the political aspects, the changes in framework boundaries that we need, etc. So yeah, there we work together with quite some universities.
Judith?
And maybe to build on top and jump in, I think it is possible to reframe the topic from a very negative or a sort of problem-oriented to solution-oriented simply by flipping things on their head and also rethinking about what the business is about. So on one hand, you look at businesses, let's say a company that produces steel. Are you producing steel? Or are you a company that makes sure that structures stay where they're supposed to stay without collapsing. And that changes the view, right, of what that business is for. That we had that in history, that there's a purpose to the business. There's something that it seeks to do. We lost that a little bit. Now we say, well, I'm in the steel industry. But kind of switching that around is very, very important. And I think the other thing is that, from what Christian said, businesses understand risk. They understand they have to manage the risk. And if you can make businesses understand it's not just short-term risk, but also longer-term risk, but that risk is not just a risk, it's also an opportunity. And opportunity means innovation, and innovation can mean profit, right? So I think just kind of reframing it, so to get away from that negative perspective into something that is an opportunity and a possibility, is important.
So that's also part of this mind shift. I am shifting my perspective to the screen, as there is also an interactive part of this panel discussion. There is a question to Geneviève. Can sustainability education only be implemented top-down? What about bottom-up approaches like integrating students in curriculum development?
Of course not. Sustainability cannot be just put top-down. But I think the institution and the management of the institution has to have an ambition, has to say, okay, at this time frame, we need to try to reach that goal, to have, for example, that would be our dream, that by 2030, all of our students coming out of our institution have the skills, know what to do in their professional life and how to contribute to the transition. We need to have this ambition, and we need to put money and time and instruments, some things at the disposal of the people to now try to reach this ambition. But of course, it has also to come from the professors themselves and from the students, and we do that also. We try to use that was Cecile, we're talking about the minority active. We try really to use those minority, be it teachers or students who really want to do something. We give them money, we give them time, and we try to convince them, to encourage them to come up with ideas, and we can finance and stuff like that.
So speaking of money and time, there's a question to you, Benjamin. How should students be empowered to become agents of change and not just thinkers? Is it just money and time, or do you need something else?
That's a very good question. And no, but I think that what she said just before and what she has is very well, recognizing the commitment then of students, very important.
Après, à savoir si seulement l'argent.
Then to know if it's only money and time that is needed, I'm not sure. What is important for students is that we can work on change. And it's important to have a change behind. So a student that will commit themselves for 3 or 4 years, or even 5 when they do a master, for these students, it's important that we are committed at the university or higher education level. We cannot only just work and dedicate a lot of time at the rectorate without seeing any change. So that can be very important, and that has to be kept in mind.
It's basically also to those that represent the institutions that you have to showcase that you listen to the students and that you actually the time they invested into also engaging with you, that this paid off. I'm moving to most probably last question before then we wrap up with the final question, which I would like to first give to Christian the possibility to answer and then open it up. Higher education is strongly intellectual. How to innovate higher education to become a more balanced, intellectual and practically oriented. So Christian, what would be your recommendation to the 2 representatives from these institutions to ensure, you already said a bit about what you think we need to do in terms of ensuring that what is taught is really also practically applicable? Which tips could you give them?
Well, certainly give the possibility to the students to talk to companies. I think that is important, but also to give them the possibility to think beside the aspects that they hear from the companies. So I think it is a reality that today's industry or today's economy is on a certain path, and that we need to change that path, and we need to talk about how we can do that. So it is important to bring both sides together. On the one hand, the critics on the problem of this, what I called the operating system, but at the same time understanding or learn to understand the problems that companies have, and accept that stretch that exists in this situation, and try to find creative solutions to move forward.
Geneviève.
Well, we are the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Western Switzerland, which means that it is really in the DNA of University of Applied Sciences to really work on a very practical mode, which means that practicability, working in concrete projects with the companies, with the different organizations, is just our daily business, which makes me say that maybe we're in a big advantage in regards to then integrating this whole thing that we are talking about here. I mean, we're really a practical institution, so it helps.
Thank you, Judith. Anything to say?
No, I mean, simply that is the answer for me as well, that we have these partnerships, and we are not an applied university, but I think we do, at least in the business side, not the technical side, have a lot of those touch points, not only in sustainability courses, I will add, also in many other courses. So I think that's a bit our legacy in history, and leveraging that and giving students a bit the view. Here I actually have to agree with Christian that my students sometimes come in thinking that there are black and white answers to sustainability. And then over the semester, we invite a lot of corporations in, and they start to see the complexity and what companies really face, especially the large companies, to implement this. And I think it's important that they get that view as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot. I think this was a very important keyword, complexity, not complicated, but complexity, and understanding that you need to develop a specific type of thinking to be able also to deal with complexity, and that's where probably then also transdisciplinarity is one of the keys that would help. I would like to turn now to the last question, and this is a question that goes to all of you. Before I ask you that question, I have to briefly introduce that question. That question is about money. So, there is money out there. Currently, there is a public consultation of the framework credit for the budget which is spoken on education, research and innovation. It's a framework credit which is spanning over 4 years, 2025, 2028. It's about 200 pages long, so if you don't know what to do on the weekend, go and read it. You can still say it, hand in what you think about it. In this framework credit, there are 20 millions foreseen per year to fund sustainability in higher education. So, 20 millions, that's not too bad. What would you use them for? Benjamin, the floor is yours. And you have 1 minute, each one of you.
Je vais me dépêcher alors. Non, mais...
Ouais.
So I will hurry up. I believe what's important is to give that money to higher education schools that are really committed to sustainability. And as a student, for me, it's important that young people and students can also help decide just what was discussed before, the possibility also to be a student that is committed, that will assume responsibility, that also wants to take decisions. And that's important. For me, a part of this 20 millions should be there to support the various university and higher education schools. And I'd like to add that a particular sum should maybe also be given to student groups that are actually working on bigger projects that are actually touching the whole of Switzerland. That's very important also for the association.
If I was to highlight one of them, I would focus probably on this interdisciplinary or integrative approaches, supporting universities to do that. That can be co-creating courses with students, of course, but can also be on the research side. I think one weakness we have as a business school is we don't have natural science at our university. We don't have technical expertise in the way, for example, ETH has it. So sort of supporting those kinds of activities, because sustainability will need a solution that's holistic.
Thank you so much, Judith. Christian.
Well, I have a rather odd idea that I would like to present to you. I would spend the 20 millions. I think it's not much for the task we have. So I think it would be best to spend the 20 millions to the professors and to have them answer 2 questions by themselves and to give them the chance to do that and have enough time to reflect on it. And the first is, with my own field, what can I do to bring sustainability ahead? So one thing. And the second, that's probably the easy thing. The more difficult thing is to ask that they should ask themselves, what are the skills they lack the most to be able to do that task? And then to give them the chance to mend that.
Thank you. So 20 million for 2 questions, yes? Geneviève.
Well, it's not really 20 millions, because it's 20 millions for 4 years and for all the universities or institutions in Switzerland. So, but if I could have 20 millions for me, for my institution, no, of course we will only have a part of it. And we want, of course, to get bigger, go regional with our program, Former pour Transformer. But if we could have more money, what really I would like to do is to get a Swiss franchise of the Campus de la Transition.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. I think we are moving to the end. I would like to just end this panel discussion in thanking the panelists and in quoting Christian in a different way than the second question you would want the professors to actually ask or to dwell on. I think what is important in this topic, sustainability, thinking and acting, is that I have to admit, especially when I am working in a higher education institution, that I don't know. And this is an invitation to all of us. Let's admit that we don't know and be curious and talk to those that know what I don't know. So this is an invitation to all of you to just be curious and start to be and bring the change to where you think it is most needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tatjana, for this excellent moderation, and to our distinguished guests for your contributions.
Merci beaucoup.